Hello my dear. As promised, I'm going to cook risotto for you tonight. By the end of the recipe, you'll understand why it was easier to just show you with a video instead of, just reading a very long paragraph. It's a simple recipe. There are a few tricks. There are a few things that that you need to work on and be extra careful about. The recipe that I'm going to do tonight, it's a little bit different from the one that we used to make back in the days in Boston 15 years ago, almost 15 years ago. Over time, I fine-tuned the recipe and I discovered new tricks and new ingredients and new techniques that actually made this risotto that I'm doing today one of my favorite dishes and one of my wife's favorite dishes. So I think you're gonna be happy with the result. There are a few rules that we are going to set at the beginning. Then I'm going to give you an overview of the ingredients and an overview of the cooking options as for pans and stuff. And then that's it pretty much. So the first thing that we're gonna talk about is time. If you want to make a good risotto, you have to take into account that you're gonna need probably 45 minutes. Okay, the cooking of the rice itself is probably 18-20 minutes. Okay, then you have a couple of more minutes in order to let it sit, and before the actual cooking, it's gonna take you 10 minutes to prepare it. Once you get used to it, I would say that at the beginning you will probably need 45 minutes of time. Take extra time, okay? Take it easy. There is no recipe that comes well if you rush, if you're in a hurry. So take your time, okay? And in order to establish a good pace, have a drink and start drinking, and you're gonna just pick up the right pace. Now, I don't actually remember how we used to make risotto back in Boston. I mean, there's only one way of making it, but I don't actually recall what we were using as for ingredients. Certainly we did not have all the ingredients I have here in Italy. And I was using, for example, oil instead of butter that I'm using today. I'm not gonna use oil today. And I was using a different type of rice, and I learned that there are very specific types of rice that you can use for a risotto, and the results are gonna change dramatically. I was using the stock cubes, the Maggi or Knorr or Star or whatever brand you have, and I'm not using those anymore. So there are a few differences that I've picked up over the years, and I'm gonna tell you all about it. All right, so this is our cooking station, and we are going to start from the butter. I'm using this butter here. It's burro chiarificato. I'm not sure if you have it in Greece. Basically, it's a butter that has been deprived of some proteins or water, actually. So it's perfect for frying because it doesn't burn. It has a very high temperature. It can withstand very high temperatures, let's say. Then we have a clove of garlic, 2 cloves of garlic, half a white onion, which we're gonna dice. Then we have the broth itself. As I told you, I'm not using the cubes anymore. I'm using this one. It's liquid. It's from Star, and you should have no trouble at all finding it in Greece. But anyway, the regular one, the stock one, is just fine. This is the rice. This is the rice I'm using. It's a very special rice that is made here in Italy. It's got very, you see, it's small, very small, tiny what are they called? We call them kiki. Grains, that's right. This amount of rice is good for 4 people. It's actually 360 grams. The recipe would be for 4 people, 320 grams. But this one specifically is 360 because I'm expecting a little bit of a leftover tonight so that tomorrow Chiara can bring it to work. Okay? So 4 people, 320. This is a little more, 360. 90 grams each. Then of course we have Parmigiano Reggiano, not Parmesan cheese. It's called Parmigiano Reggiano. We have a tiny little bit of white vinegar, and I'll explain you why later. And of course we have the saffron. I'm using the powder saffron because it's easier to find here. I know that you have a fairly good amount of saffron in pistils in Greece, or at least you were able to find it. I prefer the pistils actually because they look good on the plate and they are able to unleash very, very delicate flavors. So if you have pistils, use them. Now let's talk a little bit about pans. So there are basically two pans that you can use. One is this one here on the right, which is the one that I'm going to use. As you can see, it's not very tall. It's flat, and it's stainless steel pan. On the left, we have a non-stick pan. I would recommend this pan if you are at the beginning because the rice needs to be stirred continuously for like 20 minutes. So having a non-stick pan can help you out a little bit at the beginning. Anyway, tonight I'm going to show you how to make risotto in this one because I like it. Now, let's put our broth on the fire and let's start warming it up. For every 300 grams of rice, I usually use 4 times as much water. So 300 grams of rice, it means that I'm gonna need 1.2 liters of broth. Okay, this is a little bit more because I have 360 grams. So this should be good. It should be good, and of course, if you are running out of broth, you can add, of course, a spoon of water or just warm up a little more broth. But anyway, 1.2 liters every 300 grams. Okay. We are now going to dice this onion. This onion was originally 180 grams. You don't need the whole thing because the onion itself would release too much flavor and bitterness. Half of it every 4 people is more than enough. Okay, so we're gonna dice it and then we are going to put it in the pan with some butter. So let me dice it. All right, so now we have our butter, our diced onion, and our clove of garlic, which needs to be peeled. And here we go. And we are going to make the soffritto. Okay, so basically we just need a tiny, not so tiny, piece of butter, and then we're gonna dive the onions in. Let's just let the pan warm up. Alright, so the pan is warm. We're gonna use, this is 250 grams, I believe. Yes, 250 grams of butter. Tonight we are probably going to use a good half of it. So don't worry about it, butter is healthy. So we're gonna start with a piece like this, which we're gonna use for the soffritto. Let's not have the pan too high, too warm. Okay, we want to melt the butter. We don't want to burn. Okay, so watch out. Alright. And now let's get our clove of garlic and our onions, and let's drop them in. Let's put the fire out to the minimum. So basically the onion needs to stay there for roughly 10 minutes, okay? Keep stirring because you don't want the onion to burn. And basically, if you listen to it, this must be the maximum sound that you reach. You shouldn't go higher than this. Okay. So you see the flame is very low. That's at the minimum actually. And you let it go there for like 10 minutes, okay? You can add a little bit of salt in order for the moisture to come out. This is pretty much the only salt that we're gonna use in the whole recipe, because the broth itself has a little bit of a salty taste. And we're gonna add the Parmesan cheese. Scusami, Parmigiano Reggiano. So you're not gonna need any extra salt. All right, let's cut open the saffron. So as I said, I'm going to use 3 of these tiny envelopes. 1, 2, 3. What's this? What the hell? Whoa. I want a soccer ball. Who cares? Quick look at our onions. They're looking good. Let's go. So basically, as I said, we're gonna use 3 of these envelopes, okay? The amount of saffron inside is very limited, but don't worry, it's more than enough. If you are using the pistils, however, you should remember to get a little bit of water or broth, okay, warm temperature, a little bit more than this. Put the pistils inside like half an hour before you toss the rice into the pan, okay? So the color actually comes out and the flavor starts to open up, okay? So the onions have now been going for 5 minutes roughly. We're gonna need a few more minutes. All right, some of our onions are already turning golden, so it's a good time for us to turn off the fire. And we are going to get all this beautiful onion inside a little plate or a little cup, because we're not going to use them or use it right away. We're going to use it later. Okay. Here we take it out of the pan. There we go. There we go. Now is a good moment for us to take the garlic out. We're not going to use it anymore. It served our purpose. Okay, and then we are going to quickly wipe the pan. Okay, because we are going to use it right now for the rice. But we don't need any of these little onion pieces inside. Okay. So with just a paper cloth, we take it out. If we don't take it out, the onions inside would burn once we put them back on the stove, and the taste is going to get very, very sorry, very, very burny, and it's not gonna smell good. There we go. As for this tiny film of oil, this is good. This is good. We can keep it, okay? And we're gonna put the flame back up, okay? I would say probably like 60-70% of the power, and we'll put that back on, and let's let it warm for a couple of minutes. All right, now we are going to get into the real cooking part. So we're gonna add the rice inside the pan, and we are going to toast it for 3 minutes, okay? So let's go. Alexa, timer 3 minuti. We got Alexa for Christmas from our in-laws, and it's pretty amazing in the kitchen because it helps me monitor time, and when I have the specific timing, like for the risotto recipe, it's a good hand. So what is this process? We are toasting the rice. Basically we are making the rice toast, pretty much warm up, and it's going to affect and be extremely beneficial later on once we add the broth. So it's going to keep all the we call it amido. I'm not sure what's the name in English. It's going to release the amido differently, and it's a very good technique and process which I was not using back in Boston, and I have learned it over the years, and it's really good. So you basically toast it for like 3 minutes, okay? During the toasting, the lower grains will tend to look transparent, okay? That's normal. You keep stirring, you keep moving it around. You don't want it to get sticky, and try to keep it on the fire, okay, at all times. All right, almost there. Alexa, fermati. Okay, now we're gonna add the broth. Good. Nice. So we have added just a very limited amount of broth. Alexa, timer da 10 minuti. 10 minuti.
10 minuti a partire da ora.
Okay, so I have just set a timer for 10 minutes. Okay, so in 10 minutes from now, the rice will have been in the pan for 13 minutes. 3 minutes of toasting and 10 minutes in with the broth. Okay, at that time we're going to start adding new ingredients. For now we just keep stirring very slowly, and we make sure that the amount of broth is just the right amount. Okay, so you don't have to pour it too much. You don't have to pour the whole thing at once. You pour it little by little, every minute or so, a little bit, and you add it. Okay, now we have added the broth. What happened to the onions that we cooked before? Here they are. This is a good moment to put them back in with all the butter that they had. There we go. Stir, mix. This is a good moment because the rice is in a let's say wet bath, so you're gonna be able to mix the grease, the fat of the butter easily, and it's going to be distributed evenly across the rice. There we go. The fire is a bit too high, so I'm just gonna turn it a little bit down, okay? Rice doesn't have to boil, it's going to cook perfectly, and the temperature doesn't have to be too high. Let's add a little bit of broth now. There we go. And stir. The risotto is one of those recipes that keep you glued to stoves for as long as the risotto takes, so 18-20 minutes. There is no, going around, sitting on the couch and watching the news. It's just dedication, total dedication. Still a bit too high temperature. Let's turn it down a little bit. Broth, and you just keep going. A little bit of broth, stir, broth, stir. And we're going to do this until the bell rings. Alexa, fermati. Alright, so we are 10 minutes into the cooking. And we just keep adding a little bit of broth and stirring, a little bit of broth and stirring. I have turned down the heat a little bit because it was boiling way too much. Rice is a delicate cereal, so don't go too hard with the flame. And here we go. Okay, so we are 13 minutes into the cooking right now. Now our rice is looking good. Let's add a little bit of broth over here. There we go. We are now 16 minutes since we first pour the rice into the pan, and it's time to add the saffron. And 2. And number 3. Damn it. You can add a little bit of broth to help the distribution of the saffron. There we go. Alexa, fermati. Alexa, imposta un timer tra 2 minuti. So we have now reached 17 minutes into the cooking. Right. Alexa, fermati. Okay, now we are about to go with some cheese, Parmigiano. Few schools there are here. You can add a lot, too much. You can add very little. I usually go with 1 spoon every 100 grams. Okay. A little bit of broth. We are in the final stages, so I have lowered a little bit the temperature because I'm not going to add much more broth right now. I just want the cheese to melt in and to make that creamy texture. And here we go. Oh, nice. It's very creamy now. Almost liquid. See? That's exactly where we want to go. Now, at the beginning I told you about ingredients. I told you about the vinegar. Why do we use vinegar? We use vinegar because it gives an acid taste. It's something that I have discovered in the recent years. You could achieve the same with a glass of white wine at the beginning, once you're cooking the onions. I personally don't like using the wine at the beginning because I feel like it gets lost over the cooking. So I prefer to add a little bit of vinegar, which has a very nice kick in the flavor, but I use it towards the end of the procedure. Okay, I had already tasted for salt, and salt was just fine. Nice. Okay, al dente. This thing needs an additional spoon of cheese. Spoon and a half. Some more moisture here. And let's go for the final stir. It's looking good. So you see, it takes at least 20 minutes from the moment you pour the rice into the pan for toasting. Nice. Okay, we're gonna turn off the fire, turn off the vent, because it's making me dizzy, and we're gonna take the rice out of the fire. Very important, because that stove is very hot and it's gonna keep releasing heat. We're gonna turn off the broth too. We have very limited amount of broth left, you see. So my my calculations were pretty accurate. What now? Now it is time to add some butter. Why do we add the butter? Because it's gonna help us mantecare. Again, don't be afraid. Remember, we haven't used any rice. Sorry, we haven't used any oil. Nice. And we do this out of the stove. The cooking is done. We don't need any extra heat right now. The rice just needs to, sit for a few seconds, a few moments. We're just adding this final layer of fat with the butter, and you can see that the rice is moving like a wave, which is good. Nice consistency. You probably had my rice in Boston a little more on the thick and drier side, but this is the way I started cooking, and I think it's the right way. All right, time to plate. I just let the rice a couple of minutes here. You see it's still creamy and wavy enough. Save the broth, because maybe if you want to take an extra plate, an extra bite later on, you might want to add a little bit of broth, so it's going to be as creamy as your first plate. Yeah, serving is not my thing. Definitely not my thing. All right, so this is for 4 people. We used to eat a lot of it. When I make risotto, I only make this stuff and I don't make anything else. Voila. Doesn't look as perfect as the restaurant, but it's still pretty good. And I recommend a little bit of black pepper on top. Now I'll eat it and then I'll tell you how it was. So, as you can see, the risotto was a total disaster. We didn't eat it. It was disgusting, and we're probably gonna feed the porks with it tomorrow. And here's me, happy face.
Ciao Crissa!
And here's another happy face. And how was the risotto?
Very good.
Very good, very good. So, see, no biased answer. So she's happy and I'm happy, and I hope you guys are gonna be happy cooking it too, because it's my favorite recipe ever. So it's I'm so happy that you asked me to give you the recipe, and you're gonna have to let me know how it comes out. And of course it's gonna take a little bit of practice, but I'm sure you can pull out something good. And once you decide that marketing is not your thing anymore and you want to open a restaurant specializing in risotto in Athens, give me a call, because I might come and join you forever. Okay? It was a pleasure doing this thing, and I actually had fun.
Bye.
I could do it as a job. Who knows? Ciao. Vidakia. Klinikta.